Welcome. All right. So make sure everything is working here before we get started. All righty. Well, we'll go ahead and get started here. My name's Jenny Ponzurek. Excited for all of you who are joining me live or listening to the replay a little bit later on. We are talking today about exclusionary factors. I am a school psychologist, been working in this field for over 20 years and love helping to support other school psychologists. I provide lots of trainings. I have always worked in Southern California, so I do lots of trainings in the state of California and get to talk about a variety of different topics. I also help support school psychologists through online content as well. Thank you everyone who's here live. So wanted to talk a little bit about exclusionary factors, and we're gonna kind of focus our attention on the ones that are there for specific learning disabilities, one of my favorite topics. And wanted to talk about this because I don't know about all of you, but I get frustrated sometimes with these exclusionary factors. Not that we have them. There can be just frustration when we're looking at some of these different areas here. So I just wanted to give this tip that is helpful for me. I kind of put our exclusionary factors for learning disabilities into some different categories, and that kind of helps my thinking through this process a little bit here. So let's go ahead and kind of walk through some of these categories that I use for myself. So let's talk about the ones that are a little bit more straightforward, right? Like, we want to say that learning disabilities are not primarily the result of a hearing issue or a vision issue. That I like to put as a little bit more straightforward because we usually within the schools are looking at students' hearing and vision through screenings so that we can rule that in or out. And it's usually something fairly straightforward. They pass these and therefore I feel pretty comfortable saying we're ruling these out. That's a little bit different than some of the other ones that we're going to be talking about, right? So first, I just want to think about what are the easy ones? What are the easy ones and what kind of data do I have to that I've documented within this report to easily say, according to the information there on page 2, these do not appear to be primary factors. Now, sometimes we work in spaces that even the most straightforward things get a little complicated. I don't know about you. In my ideal world that I live in, I wish I had got hearing and vision results before we even started down the path of evaluation. Sometimes I've worked in those places. Sometimes I work in places where I get vision and hearing results on day 58 of my 60-day timeline. And that makes me nervous, and that makes me sad when someone tells me they didn't pass a screening, right? Then we always have a lot of follow-up questions, right? If they didn't pass the vision screening, it's always like, well, because they can't see the board or they can't see like my flip books right here, right? Or if they didn't pass their hearing screening, it's always like, well, which ear? Is it in both ears? And then you're madly trying to remember how you were seated and the student was seated, right? And how quiet was your environment, right? So that's why I said they're a bit more straightforward because nothing is like super straightforward in our world, right? That would make things way too easy for us, right? So again, just kind of talking about these exclusionary factors and kind of putting them into some different categories. So first category is the ones that are a little bit more straightforward. Then I think about some of our exclusionary factors. I just put them in the category, I wish someone would just give us a little bit of guidance, right? And I'll put attendance in there. Because we know that we're not supposed to be saying a student has a learning disability if the primary reason for their whole learning profile is that they've missed huge chunks of school. And so we have this thing for attendance. And I don't know about your district, your state. I have never worked in a place that has given us any sort of like, here's the number, here's the percentage, this is what we're looking for. I really wish someone would like, here's the magical number, right? We wish we had a little bit of guidance. Sometimes things are super obvious. I remember I was doing a training in a school district up in Northern California, and we were talking about attendance as a rule out factor for learning disabilities. And someone raised their hand and mentioned that they had gotten a referral. They checked their email at lunch. They had gotten a referral, and the student missed 150 days last year, just last year. Okay, that seems a little bit more obvious, right? Like, I think that probably had a huge impact on how the student's performing, right? But most of us aren't in those situations, right? Most of us are in situations where students have missed like 25 days or 30 days, or like, what is that magical number that would make all of us just be like, all right, is this a primary factor, right? And therefore is likely a rule out for a learning disability? Is this just contributing to the issue but doesn't appear to be the primary factor? Or is this not something that's really, impacting the student at all? So one of the things I think about for attendance is I always want to think about, is this been a long-standing issue, right? Has this been happening since kindergarten, or has it been grouped, fairly recently? Or was this in early years and we don't see it now, right? I think that's always important to know, what's that historical perspective? The other thing we always want to know when we see things about attendance issues is why? Why is the student been absent so much, right? Because if all of a sudden someone starts telling me stuff and it sounds like anxiety, we might not be going down this learning disability route anymore. We might all of a sudden take a turn and start looking at the social emotional kind of situation going on here, right? A little bit different than, situations where kids just don't always want to come to school and their parents are kind of okay that they miss school sometimes, right? I think about also, depending on what the guidance was for your state, last school year, we had a lot of students, I always refer to that as quarantine year. We had a lot of school districts that, I don't want to say forced, but it was kind of our policy in certain areas that, like, if your kid got exposed, you had to stay home for a certain number of days. So we have some students that unfortunately kind of were in that space maybe multiple times last year. And so it's almost like, I don't want to say it wasn't their fault. It kind of wasn't their fault, right? Like, they were out because our state required them to be out, right? Like, so knowing the reason behind the attendance issue, I think can be really helpful in our interpretation. It gives us that context that we're usually looking for, right? And I think it always is helpful to know too, like, what are we talking about in regards to these learning concerns? Because we know certain skills like phonological processing, phonemic awareness, basic reading skills, they really require explicit instruction. So those kind of things I want to keep in mind when I'm bringing all this stuff together, right? Like, it's not just the student has an attendance issue. It's like, when was the attendance issue? What are the different processing skills that we are noticing? What are the academic areas of concern? Kind of bringing all of that together to now reflect on, okay, do I think this attendance issue is the primary reason for this situation that we are seeing, right? And I will just say, because I'm in lots of conversations with school psychologists about a lot of different topics related to, like, we just want a number as like a cutoff score. Usually, I will just say, when someone gives you a number, we don't like the number people give us. We think we want numbers, but the minute someone gives us a number, we're like, I don't like that number. So we'd like a little bit of guidance, right? But usually when we're given like a specific number, a lot of school psychologists are not fans of that. So we have some that are a little bit more straightforward, some that I think we need a little bit of guidance and we really need to take into context of the whole situation. And then I put a couple of other exclusionary factors. I like to put them more in like a comparison group, right? I've read a lot of information about like the cultural and linguistic and socioeconomic factors that we're supposed to be taking into consideration. We're talking about exclusionary factors. And it's always like, where's the guidance on that, right? Where is all of the information we need to be looking at in regards to that? Wouldn't it be great if there was like, when you see this, then this happens, right? And a lot of times, some of these exclusionary factors, what we're looking at is, what are we comparing this student's progress, Like, who are we comparing the student to, right? So I worked in a school site for many, many years. And during my time there, we worked really hard on great things at Tier 1, really looking at our data and looking and applying that information, not just admiring our data, but actually making data-informed decisions. We had some great Tier 2 intervention programs for reading and for math. And, we did progress monitoring. We did all these things. Some of you in some states, you're like, we do that every day. Sometimes in California, we're like, woohoo, our schools do that. When I worked at that school, I had a lot of comparison data. I had universal screening data. I had progress monitoring data. So when I had students that were culturally and linguistically diverse, I had a lot of comparison data because I had a lot of students that were culturally and linguistically diverse that were also in the intervention programs. So when I was able to take a look and be like, do I think this is the primary reason for the learning situation going on? A lot of times I was like, well, I have a lot of other students that are similar to the student's cultural and linguistic background, and they seem to be making a lot more progress and my students not. So there seems to be like something else going on. So that's kind of like the third category that I put some of these exclusionary factors in, which is what kind of comparison data can we be taking a look at, right? So just to give you some different ways to think about these, right? Reminders as we are finishing up this school year and kind of trying to get to that finish line here. So, and you probably heard me when I was talking about some of these exclusionary factors. I like to put them into categories of, I do think this is primarily responsible for what's going on. Sometimes it's not applicable at all, but I like having a middle category too, which is, I think this is contributing to. I don't think this is helping the situation, but I don't think it's the primary factor. And sometimes I like to acknowledge in my reports, like, you know what, this kid doesn't come to school 100% regularly. I don't think that's helping. I think it would be a little bit better if this student came to school regularly, but I don't think this is the primary reason for this whole situation we're in, right? So I like to kind of have that as like a middle category because I want to acknowledge some of these factors exist in the student's world, but I might not think that they're primary factors. And that's been another helpful way for me to think about some of these exclusionary factors as well. So I also wanted to talk to you about, I created this document that has some more tips about exclusionary factors. And if it's something that you're interested in, I want to share with you how we are sharing it with other people. If you've been hanging out with me for the last couple of weeks, you know that I am hosting a summer boot camp for school psychologists. This is going to be in July. It is July 10th through the 21st. We're having one session per day. Every session is going to be about 90 minutes to 2 hours tops. And if you're actually going to be spending those 2 weeks somewhere fun, on the beach, in your backyard, sipping some fun beverage, and you're like, I don't want to do PD during this summer, we record everything. And everyone will have access to all of the replays through the end of October. But if you do want to come live, we're also having all of our presenters have some time for Q&A within the sessions as well. So we are doing 10 sessions altogether. We have 5 sessions that are a little bit more focused for that newer school psychologist. This is perfect if you are a student, if you're an intern, if you just graduated, you're graduating in a couple of weeks and you're getting your first job, you're in your job and you're like, still have no idea what I'm doing. We've got some sessions kind of really geared towards you. And 5 sessions, we have one every other day. And I try and make things really affordable for everyone, especially if you are a student or you are still paying off your student loans. You have access to all 5 of these sessions for only $7. Really, really affordable here. And then we have another 5 sessions that are really geared more towards people who are kind of in that space of, I always think of this, and I still go through this 20 years later. Am I doing this right? That's usually my question. So we're calling it improving my practices, right? Like I know a lot about manifestation determinations, but am I doing this right? Right? A lot of parents are asking about dyslexia. am I responding to this correctly? Right? So we're going to have 5 sessions that are devoted to that. And those sessions are going to be $37. Okay. But if you want to come to all 10, of course, there's a little price thing for you guys too. If you want to come to all 10, you get all 10 of them just for $40. Okay. So this is where the exclusionary factors parts come in. So doors are opening this week. If you've not already gone to my website, right above my picture here, go on over there, get on the wait list so you get the email the second registration opens, because we are doing some giveaways for people who sign up in the first week and people who sign up in the first couple of weeks, trying to, get some people excited about this early on in our process here. But what we're going to do is for everyone who signs up, we're going to offer to them to join what we're calling like the Spread the Word program, which is you sign up and you want to tell some of your colleagues and get one of them to sign up, because if you can just get one person to sign up with your special link, you get a special link. This is how we know someone signed up through you. Then you're going to get immediate access to a document that I created called 5 Tips for Exclusionary Factors. So if you're interested in getting that, not only do you get to come to summer boot camp, but if you just get one person to sign up using your special link, then we will immediately send you the document 5 Tips for Exclusionary Factors. And if you're one of those people that love a good contest, right when registration closes, we're going to look to see who's the top person who got the most people to sign up with their special link, and we're actually giving you a gift card. Just as a special thank you for helping to spread the word. So I know there's lots of different people out there who might benefit from this. You might have some of your, for those of you in school, you might have some cohort members. You might want to share some of this information with them. Those of you who work with other colleagues, you guys can all figure it out and sign up with one another's links so anyone can get this document. So all you have to do is head over to my website, jennyponzurek.com. You can get on the wait list right now, and that way you'll get an email right when doors open. And so those are going to be opening this week, and then we'll have all of the information. We have the exact schedule that's going to be ready to go on the website. So if you're like, well, when exactly and what are the topics and who's presenting, we've got all that information for you. But it's going to be July 10th through the 21st. Everything is 10 o'clock in the morning. Pacific Standard Time, because I live in Pacific Standard Time. So everything's 90 minutes to 2 hours. So we'll get you out of there before noon. And again, if you're enjoying a fabulous vacation somewhere, or, you just don't want to be on Zoom during the summer, we're recording everything and everyone will continue to have access to the replays through the end of October. Now, as always, if anyone has any questions about our summer boot camp, whether you have questions right this minute, or you're just going to have questions that come up when you see all of the stuff on our website ready to go when registration opens, always reach out at any time. Okay, if you go to my website and kind of scroll down about 2/3 of the way down on the homepage, there's a place for you to ask me questions. Love to help find those answers. All right. Okay, I'm just double checking. I don't see any questions that are in any of our links here. So I'm going to say thank you everyone who came on live. Thank you everyone who listened to the replay of this. And I'm so excited about summer boot camp. We have been working so hard on our side to make sure all the technology is working and everything's ready to go this week for registration to open. So fingers crossed that everything works. I will see you all later. Have a great rest of your day.